right. Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. We're going to go ahead and call this budget workshop to order. It's 10 a.m. George, welcome back. Hope you're feeling better.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I guess my strategy didn't work out. We're back here today, sort of thing. Just kidding. So we're here with hopefully another day of wrap up and hopefully the final day. We put together, not sure really where the board wanted to go, so we put together about 132 slides to run through. Just kidding. So obviously the budget was put together in alignment with the strategic plan, vision, and mission and goals, and the BOCC priorities. And under the current budget, it was put together based on the existing millage rates that you see before you on the screen. And then through the process, we took it, one step farther, and we kind of broke down that millage by how it gets funded out. And you could see, under that current breakdown, the allocation of those millage rates and where each agency would appear if it was funded directly by a millage. You can kind of see how that breaks down. And then we rolled into our final conversation where you'll see here on the scenarios under the recommended budget in yellow, you'll see that this is what the recommended budget that was presented through the 3 days last week. And then there was some discussion on Friday, and we'll just use the green section where it shows flat millage. There was some discussion on Friday on funding differences from what was recommended to where the board kind of ended up on some conversation. And we're not going to use millage as the conversation. We're only talking about the numbers that you see in red. So when you look at under the green scenario, the incremental revenue that came in was $22 million. We had about 3.6 in mandated costs. That left about 18 million. 429,000 left over, and then you see the funding from the board's discussions to where they took the recommended of 8 for the sheriff and moved it to 10, a one-time funding of the sheriff vehicles at 3 million, the clerk at 200,000, the judicial agencies at 394, hands at 500, and then there was some discussion on EDC between the 184 and 325. So if we just used the lower number there, it left a balance of 4.6 that could go into a potential reserve account in anticipation of November. Not sure where the ballot initiative would be. And then I know that hearing from the team that there was some conversation about potentially going to general fund rollback rate. So if you did that, that would be the gray scenario. And so when you look at the gray scenario, taking the general fund back to rollback would drop the incremental revenue from 22 million down to 15, still have the same mandated costs, leaves the net available of 11.5, and then when you ran through the potential funding allocations that the board was discussing on Friday, that left a deficit of $2.2 million. So in order for us to give you a balanced budget, we put together the scenario that's in blue that's at the far right of the screen, and what we did was we backwards in from general fund rollback back up just a little bit to get it to a balanced budget. So I believe if you went back in about a 0.0464 plus or minus a little bit above the general fund rollback, that would get you to that balanced budget, leaving the funding the same. And then Jennifer can clarify anything I left.
Well, I do want to clarify one thing because it was brought to my attention that there is one mistake on this on the last column, and that is the aggregate rate that is on that blue column. Says 7.8341, which is still the rollback rate. That is not an accurate number. It should be 7.8840. And what that is actually a 0.0499%, 0.0499 mil difference between the rollback rate and what is needed to be able to fund the things that the board was discussing on Friday.
So that would be, in that blue scenario, that would get all of the conversations that the board had addressed, and then that would give you to a balanced budget, and it would just be just a little bit over general fund rollback. If the board wanted to, stay with the gray column and roll back, then I guess amongst the 5 years, you got to figure out where you want to take 2.2 million from in order to achieve that, or could go with the blue column and be in position. Now, this again isn't what you decide on today, is more of a consensus and a conversation. You're not adopting anything until September. So obviously in September, you would come in the first budget hearing in September and send a tentative budget and tentative millage, and then you would adopt the final in the end of September. So even everything that we discussed today is more based on a consensus, so we can build that final process and get the trims out and things of that nature, but with the understanding that you could still make adjustments beyond. Just remember, whatever we agree to next Tuesday, it can't go up. It can only go down farther, and that's kind of where it's at. So at that point, we'll stop here and go back to you guys' conversation that you were having on where you want to be.
Okay. All right, thank you, George. And we'll come back to the board. Who wants to kick it off?
I'm still digesting.
Commissioner Glasby.
So George, with the budget that you're showing us here in gray, I mean, we've got the the brackets around the things with red numbers. That means that we're deducting that from the budget, or we're deducting that from our revenue?
So what you see in the red is when you see up in the top, you'll see incremental revenue, the 15 million. That is the money that was achieved from the property appraiser, where they came in and said between new construction, tangible tax, and home value, right, created 15 million. If you give the mandated cost of 3.4, that's deducting it from the 15 million. The sheriff asked for, I think he asked for more than 10, but you guys landed on 10 million as a tentative consensus from the 5 there for this year's reoccurring funding. An additional 3 million towards his vehicle purchase. The clerk's ask was in at 200 grand, judicial agencies at 394. Funding the hands at 500,000, and then the EDC at 184. And then if you look at the bottom, you have Boys and Girls Club, which had 2 stars, but you were talking about changing money from one of the other funds and putting it to the 50,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. So that's just as a net equal. So that when you add all those together from the 15 million, you're in the whole 2.2 million. So we would have to go back to the funding before the new money, right, which is the funding that we're in right now, and we'd have to look for 2.2 million of cuts somewhere within the board or within any other agency or within board departments in order to balance the budget.
So I'm still for, and it looks like the gray one would be the millage scenario 3 from the last meeting, just for continuance purposes here. And
Yes.
cheating ahead to your future slides, is there recommendations on what we would cut to achieve that $2.2 million additional reduction?
We did not put together any recommendations of the 2.2 million. We wanted to see where the board wanted to go and then see if the board had any direction on what they would like to see cut from that 2.2, but we do not have a suggestion. What we did was went backwards from general fund rollback up just that small amount to get to a balanced budget, just to show you what that number would look like.
Okay, well, I'm still at the gray one, so just interested to hear what the rest of the board has to say on it.
Commissioner Lee, go ahead.
Yes, the previous conversations we had, and this is for the board, I thought we were more in the $8 to $10 million range for the sheriff, plus the $3 million for the cars. Was I misunderstanding, or?
I'd like to clarify a little. So what happened Friday was the discussion on the 10 million was that it was $8.3 million that was needed, plus 1.6 million for changes to the Florida retirement system rates that came in at the last minute after the sheriff had already submitted his budget request. And so there was a part of the presentation where some of the numbers from the sheriff were unclear, and I asked for some time to be able to work with the sheriff's office to get further clarification. So after Friday's meeting, I had a Teams meeting with the sheriff's office, and they showed me detailed information on how they calculate their Florida retirement system rates, and basically the budget that we're in this year, there was a mistake in how they were calculating it. They were not including their other salaries and their overtime in the way they calculate it, and so it was causing a deficit, and so that is being corrected for next year. This morning, the sheriff's office sent over several spreadsheets of 5 years' worth of history, kind of explaining how they got to where they are. They have also provided us with a 3-slide presentation, and I believe they're here if you want to have a little bit of an update. But the difference between the $8 and the $10 million was largely related to that questioning of the Florida retirement system and how that part of the budget was calculated.
Okay.
Commissioner Leonard, do you want me to?
I'm still looking at my notes.
Okay, I just don't know if you've spoken up before.
Madam Chair, did the board want to see the sheriff's presentation?
I'm fine with that, depending on the rest of the will of the board.
I'm good with it.
Is there a presentation?
They presented 3 slides, and I know we have representatives here. So
Okay.
Oh, there he is.
It's a $100 word, astutely.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So just real briefly, Friday afternoon you had a conversation and was able to watch it online. And Jennifer Hill astutely pointed out a discrepancy. And I think she highlighted what you see there and highlight with the red box around it. Hey, why is this retirement number so much larger than other numbers where the rates staying constant, unless something happened like the sheriff's office already changed the rates for the new FRS contribution amount. And I mean, she's doing a great job on limited information. So we like finding busts like that because then you don't have to find $1.6 million worth of new money. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, like me, fortunately, I would have hated to put a mistake that big in the budget, but the silver lining would have been, the money would have been there. I don't know if we want to go to the next slide. So Jennifer was right, there was a discrepancy, but it wasn't that we were putting too much in the proposed FY27, it's that we didn't have enough in the current FY26. And that's because with a lot of the processes at the sheriff's office, we are imposing new standards, and every time we go through the budget process, we play whack-a-mole, we find a gremlin, and we improve. And what we found when we looked at this is that previously, and actually, we found this as part of preparing for the proposed FY27. We were not previously budgeting the FRS contribution rate on overtime and other wages. So previously, at least since 2021 thereabouts, the standard has been just kind of get close enough, and if you're over in this one, maybe you'll be under in this one. But now we're accounting for every dollar, we're sending you the actual versus budget, and we just have a tighter standard. And so we provided 5 years to back that up. I don't think you want to go through that, but if you do, it's there, and you'll see that 20 and 21 was kind of close, but the other years were off 6 figures, and I think there was 1 or 2 that was off 7. I don't know, Jennifer's so quick, or this Jennifer is also very quick. They might have that locked down. I think, at least from my perspective, the silver lining is that now that the sheriff provides you with actual versus budget every month, and that we're going to do an end of the year budget amendment, at least one budget amendment, and we're working so well together, I think all these unresolved questions that you've had and probably have caused the Jennifers, and at least that Jennifer, to go crazy over the years, they won't all get solved instantly, but as long as we keep working hard, smart, and together, they are going to get solved, and we're just going to get better every year.
All right, thank you. Questions?
And the only other question I really had is, what's the board's feeling on the EDC? Mine is that it is going to be our salvation for either way, if the tax cuts come or don't. I think the entire board wants the property taxes lowered. I do, and I know Commissioner Claspy does. But how do you replace that revenue and keep the county operating efficiently to give the citizens what they need? And quite frankly, my opinion is the Economic Development Council, bringing in people like the Buckies, like P1 Motors, and so on and so forth, that create huge revenues in taxes that can replace the homesteaded property taxes, and we're basically cutting their funding in half. I am a little bit uncomfortable with that because, again, to me, that is the economic development of the county and a way to reduce property taxes, which, again, I repeat, I think most of us want. So I am a little bit uncomfortable with decreasing that. That being said, Jennifer, obviously the administrator is in charge of hiring staff, and obviously the constituents here, through their tax dollars, pay for your salary. And we rely on your opinion and your staff's opinion. And I look for those because, quite frankly, I think we have one of the best staffs in the county. No offense against Port St. Lucie or Fort Pierce. That being said, what is the general staff's attitude, and if you could recommend, what would it be?
The general staff attitude towards,
Yeah, for which one of these scenarios would the staff, being obviously educated in economics and
So-
being the head of the budget and
so from a, and I know the politics of it are far different
Forget those.
from that, but absent the politics, from a sheer financial perspective, the recommended budget, which included $10 million being able to be set towards dealing with the future deficits from the possibility of the of Amendment 3 passing, is the most conservative approach, because when you try and look forward as to where we might be a year from now, if we have a $66 million revenue reduction, and and our hands are tied on how we address that, already being $10 million towards that goal of $66 million in year one, and then in year two, that number climbs to $112 million. Having made some ground with addressing that would make the next several years a little bit less painful. Now, that being, and keep in mind though, the amount of revenue reduction is so great that no matter what, it's going to be painful. But a $10 million head start in a $66 million problem for next year, at least it's something. And so for me, that is the most conservative from a financial approach. Now going into the others, really anything that sets aside some of that money to deal with the future issues would be my recommendation from a financial perspective. I don't envy any of you. Your jobs are much harder than mine as far as trying to be in line with what the community as a whole wants. But from a financial perspective, that would be my approach.
And the reason that I ask that is we up here are constantly told to treat the government like a business. I'm president. I just asked my CFO what their recommendations are. And I just want to bring that to the public's attention. That being said, well, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Thoughts?
Madam
Any
Chair.
other, Commissioner Lowry?
So ideally, I would love to get to the rollback rate. I think, we've come a long way since even last budget season. But if we're not really making a decision quite today, I don't want to set us up for complete disaster. I'm more comfortable with the blue if we could still look at maybe some possible changes. Just wanted to point out too, that if you see where BOCC is, it's $0. So kudos to the staff and all the departments here that have really dug deep into their own budgets. You know, I know we're operating very slim. We're allowing other people to, you know, still fill their needs that might be a little more than usual. But I'm just not real comfortable yet making a complete decision between the rollback and in the blue box, but I think we're getting close. We're going to have to, you know, make some really tough decisions if this amendment goes through, and, you know, it's going to be a lot more difficult than just between the gray and the blue.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Clasby.
just to bring it to the board's attention, this morning in the Vero News, veronews.com, it said that Indian River County is proposing $97 million in budget cuts. So we're talking about only cutting $2.2 million off of this to achieve the rollback rate. I think that that's pretty reasonable.
Commissioner Townsend?
Well, I still want to see the rollback rate because I think that residents deserve it. And there's ways to cut this $2 million. I mean, like I gave back $80,000 out of my budget last year that I didn't spend, and it was not in just insurance. So we can all find ways to cut back. I'm not there yet with the sheriff on the 10. And with EDC, I would agree that EDC, the city of Port St. Lucie needs to pay their fair share. We should not be paying more than the city of Port St. Lucie. However, with that said, I don't want to penalize the residents and the businesses and EDC moving forward. I think a conversation, a very strong conversation, needs to be had with Port St. Lucie from the EDC, not us, that they need to come to the table and do more money. I will say that with the EDC, the programs that they have, I know, James, you said that it's still tax dollars. It's not. EDC is funded by private sponsors and businesses. Yes, what we give goes to them. And maybe instead of having their meetings every month, have them every other month, right? Because I know that when I attend those meetings, the speakers they have there, I take away a lot of value in the speakers that are there with the information given, especially on the economic stuff. So the TCC program, that's totally funded by businesses that are paying for these children to be here. That's not anything to do with us. That's another whole topic and conversation. So I'm wanting to fund the EDC because I know that moving forward, they are what is going to keep us going. The other thing is, again, none of this is going to go into effect in this budget because we're not going to know about this until November of the election. And then, you know, so waiting the 35 days, I don't even think we need to wait that. We're going to fund people, and give them their money. The election's in November. We'll already be starting into the new budget. Again, I want us to talk about the car allowance, the car gas, our aides traveling to out of town conferences and stuff with us. That's all a savings. That's never been done in the history of this county. So when we all sit back and look, there's ways that we can still scale back. For me, it's not an option. I want the rollback rate. How we get there, it doesn't matter to me. And as far as the EDC, it's the majority of the board, but I do want to see them funded.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Clasby?
You know, I don't want it to sound like we're framing this rollback rate argument or, you know, going for the rollback rate as if we're trying to get ahead of Amendment 3. This is something that I've been talking about for years at the county. We need to try to achieve a rollback rate to get flatter budgets year over year. Next year, I'm going to want the rollback rate too if we don't get Amendment 3. So just be prepared for that conversation. But as far as the EDC goes, George, could you give us a little background as to the, you know, statutory requirements? I know that we have to have an Economic Development Council designated of some sort. Is that true? How did we come about to picking this specific group? How did that happen?
So I know that the county's, in a sense, required to have an economic development council, you know, a nonprofit economic development council. How this one came to be is before my time. You know, it's been around for many years. I know that it went through a decent transformation in that 2013, 2014, and it became, you know, effective during a time when we were not seeing the job creation like others were around. I'm not, where you guys are at today with it is where you want to, is where you're at with it today. When it comes to funding, there isn't a statutory requirement that says you have to fund it in any sort of way. It just says that the county has to have one. It doesn't say that you have to fund it. It's kind of like other agencies that are required to be a part, but you don't have to have funding for it. So that's just, the funding is purely discretional upon the board.
And if I may add, there's no state requirement that you have an economic development agency or entity. It just says that if you choose to, that it is a valid public expenditure of funds.
Okay. So, I mean, just like anything, one group shouldn't have a monopoly on something like this. There's multiple groups out there that can perform the same function. We as commissioners could perform this same function, going to conferences and other things. And maybe we would even have a better, stake in this, that we're advocating for the people that put us here specifically rather than specific business interests. I mean, I'd like to move forward in the future where we have our staff and commissioners handling economic development ourselves. The economic development EDC, they're going to continue to exist. Their mission is to bring jobs to St. Lucie County. If we stop funding them, it's not like they're going to bring jobs to Martin County. They're funded at a certain level, and at one point, it apparently was necessary that we fund them, but I don't think it's something that we have to continue funding them forever. They can operate just fine without our funding, regardless of what they say. I mean, you ask anybody that's receiving funding, if they want more funding, the same funding, or less funding, I bet they're not going to ever say less funding. I mean, that's just a fact. Commissioner Lee just asked the Office of Management Budget, which one do they think of the scenarios is the best option. It's not surprising to me that the one that, like she said, is the most conservative, that keeps some money in a rainy day fund, is the one that they would pick. But honestly, it's not her choice. It's a policy decision by us as elected officials to choose the direction of the county. And I do think that we are entering a new era where Amendment 3 is not the last time we're going to see property tax potentially going away. And, business attractions not going to be giving tax abatements to large corporations and subsidizing their impact fees with millions of dollars, just to get them here. Yes, jobs are important, but so is the sustainability of our county. We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we have a sustainable budget moving forwards, and, subsidizing roads and different impact fees for corporations to come here. I don't see that being the future. I see that as an antiquated program that we're going to have to evolve and adapt moving forwards.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend.
So James, we cannot as commissioners market the county in the capacity that EDC does. It's impossible. And EDC, the dollar that's given to them, if we were to all go and do this, would be 3 times if we were to do this by the time we all took lodging and travel and all of that. So I don't think you quite understand what EDC does. The other thing is, back in the day, there was a time that EDC was very, very, very important because of the fact they fought for their county they represented. And the reason why we started with the tax abatements and J-gigs is we needed to be found and we needed to be competitive with all the other counties throughout the state of Florida. And so we're there. We have been found. Like, we don't, I would agree, we don't need the marketing that we had 5 years ago or 3 years ago, because we have been found. People know about St. Lucie County. But with that, and we're not even really going to have to really approve all the things that we've done over the last 5 to 7 years because we have been found. People want to be here. But with that said, right now, I believe that we're in a recession. I believe that we are in a recession and in an economic downturn, and I believe that it's going to get worse within the next 2 years before it comes back. So that's why I know I have a lot of conversations with EDC, simply because they follow the economics, they follow the trends, and they are the ones that does, it's like a consultant, which I'm not even a fan of a lot of consultants. So maybe you need to sit down and have a conversation with Wes and them and find out what all that they do, because there is a lot of value. If we're going to, the other thing is like the chamber. What does the chamber do? Well, let's cut the chamber. The chamber is a social club and it's small businesses. They don't bring any worth to the county, but we fund them. So we need, EDC is a much larger professional, not even just statewide. They do things to take Florida through other states throughout the United States. So there is a lot of value, and I don't think you quite understand the dynamics of what all EDC provides.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend, I just have one quick question. Just the EDC question. Are you looking to fund it the full 325 for clarification? Commissioner Lee, where's
Yes.
your expectation? Okay, Commissioner Clasby. Go ahead,
Madam
sir.
Chair, Commissioner Townsend, I'm only going to tell you this one time.
Oh, okay.
You need to stop trying to educate other people on the board.
Okay.
Other people on this board have been involved in the county for a long time. We've seen what you've done as a commissioner. You on this board and the policies that you've supported, the developments that you've supported, is partially the reason why I ran for office, okay? So don't try and educate me about what I don't know. I'm not gonna claim to know everything, but I know quite a bit. I have an education, I have an opinion, so I don't want you dismissing every single thing that I bring up on this board. I'm not gonna stand for it.
I'm not dismissing you, James. I'm just saying you need to have a conversation with them.
And you need to
'Cause
realize that the people
Commissioner
put me
Clausen,
here
just-
to oppose some of the policies that you've long time supported.
And
Let's
that's
just take
okay.
a break for a moment. Let's just take a break for a
You
moment.
don't have to agree.
Um,
Madam
And that's
Chair.
what makes government so great, that you have different individuals with different mindsets, different opinions, different backgrounds, and that's, part of the process. Really quickly, if I could, Commissioner Lee, you wanted consensus on EDC. So to just go from funding someone at the level of 325 to completely stripping it away is
Wrong.
not good. Is not good. So while I have been vocal about wanting to see some different things and/or having a pay-in more equal to Port St. Lucie, and one of the reasons I wanted to table it is because I needed the weekend to sort of step away, absorb everything that we went over the last 3 days, and here's what I will say, right? We all recognize the importance of economic development. It's been said multiple times. A healthy community, good jobs, is a safe community, makes people want to be here, travel here. I will also remind everyone, though, per our Constitution, we have to be very careful with funding private entities. So I am going to be a stickler about ensuring that there are more specific deliverables and measurable outcomes with everybody, EDC, hands, anything that we're not required to fund is going to need to have more accountability.
And it should.
So I would say, I would be okay with funding them at the full 325 this year. Again, having very, very, very specific deliverables and measurable outcomes tied to it, not just 90,000 for business attraction and retention. Really, again, specific, holding them accountable. And I have no problem having a conversation, if that's something we want to put on an informal at a future date, with bringing in the EDC, though, and small businesses, and having a conversation if we were to want to do something different with the EDC. That could certainly be a future conversation, but my consideration would be for this year to fund them at that 325. I agree, I don't love that PSL plays in less, but at the end of the day, Port St. Lucie is still in St. Lucie County. And so if there's a business there, we still benefit. The other thing, if I could segue over, I've thought about the clerk as well with the request for the ERP. Understanding that this budget is much more intense and immense than, say, like the fire district, which we're going through, our clerk is going through that upgrade and transition. He has for a little bit now, and it's coming along pretty good. That being said, this is almost $1 billion budget, and if the clerk thinks that she needs some professionals in there to oversee it, to ensure that everything is implemented correctly the first time, I do not have a problem giving her that additional funding, knowing that it's going to be temporary for those positions.
Madam Chair, so
Commissioner Townsend.
So can the 200 go the way it is now, and then there'd be like a one-time fee of that, so that it's not a part of
Absolutely.
her budget?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I would.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
You sort of commenting on the back of some of the things that you said. I agree. I want to fund EDC full, take that off the table. But EDC, I would like to, in the next year, have more conversations, have you have more conversations with the other municipalities. In my personal opinion, if you look at the number of county constituents, that get jobs versus the number of Fort Pierce constituents versus the number of Port St. Lucie, what does it matter? They're all getting jobs. They all need to in my opinion, be on the same level as far as funding, because they are funding St. Lucie County. That's just my opinion. It's something that we're not going to be able to work out today. It's something that's over, the course of the next year with conversations. But in the meantime, I would like to, again, totally fund the EDC, because that is going to be our economic lifeline. Commissioner Clasby, you had mentioned that, we are looking at cuts. Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. What I don't agree with, and this isn't against you, this is against our state government and our federal government, this needed to be looked from the top down, because in my opinion, what they did to us is totally unfair, without having a plan to figure out where these cuts are going to come from. I, like you, asked Blaze to, let's do a forensic audit. His comment to me was, we don't have the staff. Well, you're putting an idea out there, but you're not giving any solutions. To me, that is not a properly run business, government, or anything else. You got a problem, fix it. You don't go, let's just cut. That being said, yes, we are going to be looking at cuts down the road. We all ran on cutting property taxes. We all agree with that. And in the meantime, we do have to be good stewards of our money. We don't want to cut most of the stuff that we do. I don't know anybody that wants to see less roads done. I don't see anybody who wants to have less lifeguards. I don't know if anyone wants to, shut down the libraries a day or two a week. And so that being said, I am for the break-even point. And that being said, Jennifer, if we went to the break-even point, and I realize adding in a little bit more dollars in EDC is going to increase it, but it's going to be, in my opinion, insignificant unless you disagree. Do you have an approximate figure on, if we went to the break-even point, what a $400,000 house homesteaded increase in property taxes would be?
I don't, let me see.
Madam Chair, while she's looking at that, you mentioned something about the clerk, and then Commissioner Townsend asked about one-time or recurring. Do you have that amount by chance that you were referencing, just so we can pencil it down? Because
Yes,
our
sir.
red line's getting bigger, so we're just trying to keep track of it.
I know. So the difference between what's on our screen versus the request would be $338,695.
Plus,
So
correct.
plus
Yes.
338, and then putting the EDC at the 325. It sounds like there's three that are there right now. I'm not saying that that's done deal. This is just all for conceptual conversation. So we'll rework in this other slide, and we'll update it to show the difference.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Clasby.
the rollback rate's still achievable.
200
We can find one-time money of $2.2 million to cut from the budget right from the 315 fund. I mean, if the Amendment 3 passes, we're probably not building a new campus anyways. So $2.2 million out of the 315 fund for the building campus, we could achieve the rollback rate this year.
The only thing I would caution in that, which is a viable idea if that's the will of the board, but the only thing I would caution is if the amendment didn't pass, we are still under immense pressure with the bursting at the seams with our judicial agencies as well as others to continue forward with some sort of plan. Obviously, if that amendment passed with our massive reductions, we'd have plenty of space in our existing facilities. But if it didn't pass, that would put us farther behind that power curve, and that's a hill that is it's one of those that we have to do. It's not a want to do, it's a have to do, sort of thing, is find space for those agencies by, per the state.
And I
Correct me.
think that if we were to go out to bond for $200 million for a campus, $202 million wouldn't adjust the payment that much.
No, I'm not disputing that, but it's reoccurring. That's the reoccurring number.
I
We don't
understand.
have that reoccurring. We can't bond reoccurring money. We have to pay for the reoccurring, and that's part of that reoccurring payment. So we would be $2 million short of a reoccurring payment, which would reduce the ability to bond.
I think, George, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that comment was just for context, because if memory serves me right, I think maybe the first year of budget for me, I know the clerk, or not the clerk, but judicial was going to have a very, very, very large ask, but when you shared that we were working towards a government campus, they sort of said, okay, as long as there's I don't want to speak, but basically they've pulled back any requests and they're putting Band-Aids and they're working within their footprint, but they really need to expand. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the facilities that they have right now are unexpandable because of how they're built and where they're located at. So we're forced to, we would end up having to buy another facility and have another, third or fourth courtroom facility, which would over time be more costly than just not moving ahead with a centralized location.
So Commissioner Lee, go ahead, sir.
This is just a comment for the public. If you look back at the last 15 years, we in 2008 went through the Great Recession. We laid off a whole bunch of people. I wasn't here. The county had to compensate for the lack of funds. They readjusted the home values down. I was paying less taxes in 2010 than I was in like 1990. So the county had adjusted the values of the home down, and obviously the tax revenue went way down. Not trying to get political here, but President Obama was elected, and we all know what the economy did for the next 8 years. It was pretty much on stall. The county, for the next 8 years, they put everything on hold. Infrastructure was on hold. Projects were put on hold. We were running on a shoestring budget. Now comes 2016, President Trump comes in, everybody's going, let's see what this guy's gonna do. A year or two later, we start seeing the economic growth really picking up full steam. The county turns around in around 2018, 2019, starts getting back into the normal groove of what we were doing prior to getting the roads fixed and trying to catch up for the last 10 years that we didn't have. And then we get slapped on the hand for hiring back 200 employees, which didn't even get us back to the employment level that we had in 2008, 2009, and we have 200,000 more people here. All that being said is the taxes have been exceptionally low, except for the last 4 or 5 years with the cost of housing going, or the adjusted value of the houses going up. And do I like that? No. But when you look back and see what we've been through, again, as a business, if this was my business and I had control on it, we're playing catch up still from the last 10, 15 years. Do I want to increase taxes to make all the stuff that needed happen? No, we can't afford that. We have to act responsibly. But going back and cutting back with the potential of that already coming with Amendment 3, for at least this year, I think we need to be at the break even at the minimum, and we need to have all these other conversations, the EDC and where can we cut and what can we do, because I personally think it's coming, and even if it doesn't, we need to cut the taxes on the homesteader property. And again, I see ways to do that, which is through the EDC. There are businesses out there that a lot of people don't like, but they would be out in the middle of a dead Orange Grove underneath the main feeder lines of the Florida Power and Light, and I'm talking about data centers, that could bring in 2 data centers, could bring in the revenue that we would lose, and we wouldn't be skipping a beat. And all of those negative stories about data centers, they use water, they increase rates, electric rates, all those stories have been, they might have been true 20 years ago, but today they're not. The rates are already fixed, the water supply is already taken care of, and most people don't want these in their backyard. These are going to be sitting out in the middle of the county underneath power lines. And again, it's part of the EDC's job is to try to attract these businesses in here. And if we can get 2 of these things here, we can cut property taxes, homestead property taxes, without even the government's approval or will. We can do it automatically because we'd have the revenue to replace it. That being said, you know, I am on at least breaking even and funding what we need to and continuing the conversation for the next year, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen, and you know, we've got the next year to try to figure out how to do everything. But in the meantime, let's try to keep at an even pace instead of going in the hole.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clausby.
So one thing to keep in mind here is that we only get to set the property tax rate once a year. If a big business comes in and doesn't pay property tax because they get a tax abatement, it doesn't really help. If a data center, for whatever reason, came in here, you know, that's something that would definitely help the tax base to the tune of like $207 million potentially between property tax, tangible tax, and franchise fees just with one. That's not something we need the EDC for. We have lobbyists that do these sorts of things, that go out there and advocate on our behalf with people in the state and the federals and all of the other people out there that data centers want to come to St. Louis County because we have a nuclear power plant. That's not a very common thing in the state of Florida all over. We have 500 kV lines. I mean, we're a natural attractant for data centers, for businesses, for everything else. The EDC had a big part of that. They can take some credit for that, but we're paradise. Who wouldn't want to move here? We don't really need to sell ourselves. We don't need to, you know, subsidize development coming here. Good development will come here, and that's kind of how I feel about that. But whenever we talk about wanting to lower taxes, you actually have to lower the millage rate. So going to the rollback rate doesn't lower the millage rate that much, actually, but it lowers it a substantial amount for this conversation, and I think that still needs to be our aim here. All we'd have to do is lower the budget by $2.68 million, and that is achievable.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Townsend.
I'm not interested in doing anything to the campus fund, because even if that bill passes at some point, that is going to happen, and there's going to have to be funds available for that, because moving in the direction this county's moving in and what's happening in that courthouse, and just like you stated, Commissioner Fowler, the stuff happening judicially down there, it's all been put on hold because we agreed to this. And I am not interested in bonding money or borrowing money no more than I have to. I do know that once we get the campus up and going and we sell the property downtown, it'll pay the bond back rather quickly. We won't need it for the entire time. But for somebody that's never owned a house, they wouldn't understand what it is to save money, because they usually live month to month. But the campus is not an option for me to be able to remove that money out of that fund.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
Just one thing on the data centers. Commissioner Clausby, I'm not going to totally disagree with you that we don't need EDC. However, I will ask the question, why is Palm Beach County and Martin County already had them in front of the board and we haven't?
Not
Not
because of EDC.
maybe EDC's fault, I don't know. But bottom line is they've been down there, and Indian towns turned them down, Palm Beach has turned them down, and we've never had anybody here.
They're not very popular in the public.
I
because
agree.
The
They are
public
not
doesn't
popular.
have all the information, and you know that's its whole own toxic conversation that really has nothing to do with the budget we're trying to approve right now. I mean, in the future, you know, that could be a scenario somewhere along the way, but that's not something that you know, we're talking about today. We're looking at the numbers in front of us, and the numbers to me show that we could adopt the rollback rate 7.8341. That's a reduction of 0.1544 mils. When's the last time the county reduced the millage rate by that much?
I don't know off the top of my head, but.
Not in a single year, not to that level, but I would say that over probably the past 7-8 years where we've hit almost a full tenth of a mil, if not a little bit above, with the current reductions every, each of the years. If you go back and trace them back, I would say the past 7 years or so. So we would just have to figure out, we would just need direction, laser focused direction from the 5 years on where you'd like to see the 2.6 million cuts to come from. If that's the direction that we're going, or if there's any flexibility to minimize those cuts.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Sorry, I keep trying to jump in.
No, sorry, Steph.
It's okay. Quick question, and one is a question, and the other one is something for us to think about. Can you explain again how the clerk jumped up to 538? It was the 200,000?
It was the 200,000, and then Commissioner Fowler had mentioned that they had asked for some funding towards the ERP of about 338,000, and then Commissioner Townsend asked if that would be one-time funding, and we just put it in here just as a total amount because we'd have to figure out how to fund that next year, even if it's only one-time funding. To go from the 200 to the 538, but that's what the conversation was between the two of them. So we just put it on there as a talking point. It doesn't mean it's the final.
Okay.
And
Just
the original
because-
slide is the next slide. I just put it there so you could see what it amounts to and the impact.
Because overall, we all have to do more with less. We have to think that way no matter what. Taxpayers need a break. And how we get there is going to be difficult conversations for everyone. Whether this amendment passes or not, we have to do something to make it easier for our residents because it's unaffordable. If you look on, and this is probably a question for Wes with the EDC, the St. Lucie County funding, public funding is 20% of the total income of the EDC, correct? Just putting this out there, and it could be a thought, if we funded, say, at a flat 200,000, would that be a significant, I hate to just strip it all away from y'all, and I love the EDC, I think you guys do phenomenal things, but I'm just trying to think practically. If we're having to make cuts, our budget's not increasing, we're asking our team to do less, to do more with less, we have to start asking everybody else to start doing the same. Would that be a significant cut for you if it was a flat 200,000 versus 325?
Good morning, Chair and Commission.
Morning.
So first, I do not envy you in these decisions that you have to make because they are very difficult decisions. Answering your question, Commissioner Lowry, going to a flat 200,000 would be a reduction of 125,000 on our budget. It would still be a pretty big impact to our budget. We would have to look at, reducing the programs that we pursue and also perhaps look at our staffing levels as well. So,
Okay. Thank you, Wes.
thank you.
Okay. So for me, what I would say at this point, given where we're at, I would ask, we're 2.6 million off from the rollback rate. I am going to challenge my commissioners, and I am good with supporting that. And not that I can make you, but I am going to ask that 2.6 million, we don't leave it to staff and leave that on their shoulders. I think at least the three of us that are for that rollback rate should come prepared with what obviously staff will need to do that, but I am not prepared to just leave it on their shoulders. So I'm going to be coming in with suggested cuts of 2.687 million, and I would hope that the other commissioners wanting to do that rollback rate will do the same.
Got it.
Been preparing my whole life for this.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
So if that's where you guys are
Back
at,
over to you,
obviously we would have to, if this is the ballpark where you want to be, then we would be holding in this line until we have those conversations. And then obviously, if we can have them, whether it be through some sort of informal workshop or some sort of process between now and September, because obviously when we come before you for the first budget hearing in September, we have to prepare a balanced budget for you to have a tentative adoption. So we'd have to know what that stuff is between now and then. So I would assume that you would probably want to have some sort of conversation at the August informal to have that discussion, or
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
that would be a great timing. What does everyone else think?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Cosby?
I think that maybe we have our Citizens Budget Committee involved in helping to find $2.2 million of cuts. They've been actively engaged with the budget, sometimes for multiple years, only the budget. If they'd be interested to call a special workshop to bring a recommendation to us, I think that there's some really good ideas on that board. If you look through the minutes on some people that are really interested in pinpointing some cuts, that way we've had citizen involvement in addition to commissioner involvement with such a thing.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
That would be fine with me.
I don't have a problem with it. But like I say, I like cuts, I just don't like to get rid of services that the constituents have been used to. And obviously, we all know our road conditions and what we need to do. The infrastructure, I'm sorry, I didn't ask.
It's okay. It's okay. You're fine.
The infrastructure projects obviously are going to be put on hold for a while. I don't see a huge dilemma in cutting into the appropriate money to fund those to make up some of the differences. And yes, maybe the budget committee can come up with some recommendation that isn't going to hurt too bad.
Madam
Go ahead.
No. Are you done?
Yes.
I mean, just to recap, though, I want to make sure, because I think it's only fair that whoever is going to be affected by this, they walk out of here knowing, so that they can move forward to go finish their budgets. So the hands will get the 5, the clerk will get the 2, and then the difference of the one time, she won't get the 538, she's going to get the 200, and then the difference,
338.
of the one time, and that EDC will get the 325, and then we'd already decided on supervisor elections and stuff. So the numbers reflected here, everybody that sees this and is watching at home, they know that they can move forward with their funding on that. Is that what we agreed to?
I believe so, tentatively, yes.
Yeah, and for clarity, that's your consensus. If that's the consensus of the majority
is.
of the board, it doesn't mean that's the whole board, but that's a consensus majority pending the September votes where you
And-
actually will finalize
And then
everything.
we are tasked now to try to figure out where the deficit funding is going to come from.
Yes.
But again, I'm stating it's not coming from, on my behalf. I will never support it coming out of the campus or general funds. There's other ways in the other departments that can be cut, so.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the informal is August 11th. We will reach out to the CBC to see if they have time to get a meeting between now and August 11th. They may not be in the short window of time, and try to put something together, and because it ain't going to be an hour and a half meeting, it'd be a quite extensive meeting, so they'd have to dedicate quite a bit of time to be able to come together to review the whole budget to do that. So we will offer it. They may not be able to, so it's not because they're unwilling, it just may not be able to get a quorum together in order to do it by August 11th. But we would need, that information. We need that information in advance of August 11th to be able to sit down with you August 11th for the workshop. So that's kind of just for clarity purposes.
Okay.
Sure.
Commissioner Cosby.
So just as a fail-safe, just in case they cannot do a meeting prior to, and even if they can, I think that we should have an informal meeting prior to the tentative millage setting anyways. So the first option would be to definitely want to have the Citizens Budget Committee weigh in on where $2.68 million is going to come out of the budget. And reoccurring money, preferably, not one time as Mr. Landry said. And then, a little bit of time to review what their findings are, and then have it informal, and then our tentative millage setting.
Unfortunately, we have to set the tentative millage next Tuesday. We cannot
Next
delay on that. Yes, you have to set it in July. We don't have it, that you're doing the budget in September.
Well-
So you're setting a tentative millage July, this coming Tuesday, which is a week from tomorrow, so we won't be able to do any of that. We'll be coming before you to set a tentative millage. You can again reduce it after July in September, but you can't increase it. So you have to, we would not be able to do any, unfortunately, just wouldn't be able to do that to meet the statutory requirement for July.
And Madam Chair, so
Commissioner Crosby.
just with that, I mean, it sounds like that we're all in agreement, well, majority of us are in agreement with the general fund rollback rate. So, I mean, we would be comfortable at that point, if that's the case, to set the millage at the general fund rollback rate, finding where the budget falls could be, done between here and there.
Correct.
That's correct.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee?
And just to add in one more point to Commissioner Klasby's comments as far as the budget control and trying to figure it out, we do need to keep in mind there is the potential, strong potential, that they're going to have to figure out how to come up with the other shortage if Amendment 3 passes. So in that same, start looking in the big picture too, because my personal belief is it's coming. And it's going to hurt a little bit.
And then, Madam Chair, Commissioners, remember the law passed, it's in effect now, that it's going to require supermajority vote on each of these individual millage rates. So in the absence of a supermajority vote, it will go to rollback anyway.
Okay.
And that's there. So even if for some reason there was 3 years that had a different of opinion, it needs 4 years in order for it to move. So on the other millage rates that, besides the general fund, that weren't discussed, keep in mind that we're going to need that 4 or 5 years on each of those to keep those as well from each individual millage rate, to stay where it's at.
Okay. All right. George, was there anything else that you needed to go over with us while you have us?
Yes, if we're done with the budget conversation and we're good on that, we have our direction on the budget. There were 2 items that I just wanted to, one I wanted to circle back on, and one's tentatively new. So the one I wanted to circle back on is a ways back, the board approved to put the half-cent sales tax initiative on the 26th ballot. We did have some one-on-one conversations, and there was some commissioner conversation, at the dais of potentially pushing that to 28. The city of PSL has reached out and was strongly suggesting we keep it still on the 26 ballot initiative. We've done some polling through our outside source, and the polling, it came back that it was still in the 70s on passing in 26 based on the feedback that they've done. So we're taking a gamble either way, because you only get once every 4 years, right? So if we put it on in 26 and it fails, we can't put it on in 28. We might have to look at a new initiative in 28, but we wouldn't be able to put on the same one. But if we waited till 28 and it doesn't pass, it's one or the other either way. So it's just, we need to put an agenda item on for next Tuesday's board meeting if you want to go ahead and push it to 28. But the data is showing us right now is it still may pass in the 26. So it's a risk either way you take it. So it's one of those, I don't know either answer is the right answer, but we just need to see where you're at before we put that item on the agenda for next Tuesday.
And George, to clarify, Port St. Lucie, are they continuing to move forward with it? That's my
They
understanding.
want to.
talking
They're
to
still
council.
marketing it. They're out there educating and pushing hard on it, amongst themselves, and so are many agencies. They can't advocate. They're educating.
Right.
Sorry, using the right word. Let me clarify the right word. So don't want to get them in trouble because they're not doing anything wrong. They're educating still on it, and that was their plan, to still continue educating.
And just for clarification, Eric Gill, that ballot only needs 50% plus 1 vote. It doesn't need the 60 like the constitutional to continue that, to renew it for another 10 years.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Klasby.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the county's prerogative to put it on the ballot, right? Not the city's.
Correct. It's your call on when it goes on the ballot, but we do a joint effort with all the municipalities just because it benefits everybody, and we try to get everybody rowing in the same direction.
I mean, my looks at it and my talks with some pretty intelligent people out there in the world is that it's not good to have it on the same ballot as the Amendment 3. And then if Amendment 3 did pass, there's a pretty good argument for having it because it's a consumption tax, it's not ad valorem. it would be better to, in my opinion, to not be on the same ballot as Amendment 3.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lowry.
I completely agree. I think just from watching on Facebook, when people talk about it, they don't even really know what it is, but they see the word tax and they said, I'm going to vote no. So that concerns me to be on this same ballot. I think we have much better opportunity to see it pass if we wait till 20. Or like George said, we're taking a gamble either way, but I'm afraid to lose that money because it does a lot of good things for St. Lucie County.
I would agree with Commissioner Clausby and Lowry. Yes, it's probably better off putting it on to 28.
And I would disagree.
Why?
I mean, either way you take it, it's a gamble. And I would agree that with everybody being hyped up about the amendment on homestead, but if it fails, it fails. Otherwise, you wait. Just like George said, I'm not going to repeat what George said. I mean, if you're gonna do it, do it. And people do see the worth of that 1/2 cent sales tax, even though everybody seems to be gung ho about homestead. They respect that 1/2 cent because they know that everybody pays, tourists pays, visitors pay, and they have seen how we have sat there with our board, 1/2 cent sales tax board, made up of every single person is a lay person in the community, and they're well known, and they are out there educating, and people are very happy with how that dollar is being spent. They see the difference it's made in our roads and stuff. I've heard and I've seen on social media that people recognize that 1/2 cent sales tax is being spent on roads. I mean, you're always going to have your naysayers and your people that are going to disagree with things, but people see where that 1/2 cent's going. So I would say if it's done right and it's done through education and the city's on board and everybody gets on board with doing it, I think it has a better chance of passing. But you're taking a risk.
All right. So it sounds like we've got a majority of 3 that are saying pump the brakes on it.
So we'll put an agenda item for the 21st and for the formal decision.
Okay.
And then the second item I wanted to mention to you, and since we didn't have a July informal, and that was going to be one of the topics of the July informal, is every 10 years we do a census population, and that leads us to a look at the district maps. We all know that over the last 3 to 5 years we've seen such an influx in population come into the county to where it may have the district lines disproportionate as far as population per district serving. Not that you all serve independent districts, you serve county-wide, but we're a little over 3 years away from the next consensus, which would then draw the conversation of district lines. But per Florida statute, you can on odd years take a look at it and see if it requires if there's a need to readjust those lines. So we were just wondering if the board had an appetite to want to look at the information under the current map, see where it's at, see if it makes any sense for early 27 to readjust those, and then obviously and then again wait, then we'll see what 2030 brings. But we know that the population's increased probably in the last 5 years over 100,000, and normally we don't see that kind of increase. Normally it's 5 to 10,000 per year, so it'd be all 10 years before we've seen what we've seen in just this 7. So it's just something that it does, it doesn't hurt to take a look at it. It doesn't mean you have to do anything, but we just want to know if that's one of the things that the board would want us to look at going into early 27, because we'd have to start it now.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend?
I think we do need to look at that because my district is as far north, south, east, and west as you can go. And I have the unincorporated county, and it's crazy because it's hard for me to be at Becker Road and then be in Lakewood Park. Lakewood Park people are extremely needy and have big mouths that like to lie, a lot of them. They must be friends with Clausby. But anyways,
They are.
I do think that we need to
I
look
love
at this
Lakewood Park.
because there's no reason why somebody that's as far north should be traveling to the south.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that the ag, that's always been why it's always been in 5, and to pick that up with the North Beach. But with the way that Port St. Lucie has grown, and the other thing is knowing that the growth is gonna be North County, get in front of that now and relook at maybe redrawing some of the lines, because it's crazy, just the vicinity of the miles traveled. So,
Madam Chair. I was going to say, tradition alone in just 34987, I think, has grown like 30%, which is crazy. I don't even imagine what Becker Road area is, because that's gotten huge too, so I'm in full support of that as well.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Lee?
I am in full support on it. My district is 99.9% Port St. Lucie. All I can do is talk to the commissioners in the city. There's no jurisdiction outside. We share the Jessica Clinton Park. I agree with Commissioner Townsend. I don't understand why the lines don't run in the county aspect more east and west rather than east-west stop and then you've got all the west.
Well,
Madam Chair?
the reason why is because it's based on population and back.
Understand, but-
Even at the last redistricting, it was still very sparse out west of town. And where you are and Aaron and James are, it's very heavily populated. So Jamie has some of the unincorporated with White City and Indian River States, but you have to look at the population. And when you're where you are, it's so dense there, it's hard for you to spread out and pick up anything. Where it's ag or something like that. It's crazy. You'll see, staff does a good job. Planning does a really good job with it. Whenever the last time we did it, it was interesting to see how they drew some of the lines.
Yeah, there was 3 options, right?
Yeah.
Commissioner Crosby?
You know, I'm in complete agreement with Commissioner Townsend on this, and I do love Lakewood Park, and they are my friends. But District 5 has always kind of been the donut district, is what Kraft and Cliff Barnes used to kind of describe it as, because it used to include South Beach at one point as well. I mean, it used to be kind of the catch-all district once you set the others for population, and you know, it definitely needs another looking at.
I agree.
So we'll start working on that data and bring it forward as just some examples, you know, in the fall, and then it'd be something you wouldn't be able to adopt until 27. So it'd be, you know, we can at least get the ball rolling. So for early 27, you can have all the data you need to make a decision if you choose to make one.
Just
Excellent. Yep, Commissioner Lee?
one more comment on that. In today's, one of the articles I was reading online, of course, we know what that is like, but it mentioned that 34987, the Tradition area, is the fastest growing zip code in the United States.
Insane.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Just drive out there, you'll see.
All right. And so if there's no other comments, questions, direction, then thank you guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.